So, first statement. I am no longer part of the furry community / fandom.
I have come to this conclusion because I'm not saying the people are bad. I'm not saying the community itself is bad. There's friends to be made everywhere.
But I just
If you were to scroll through some furry artists' social media posts, you would see the highlights. Maybe some suit progress shots, maybe some photos from meetups, and maybe the occasional style progress post. But what you won't see is the people who slowly disappear from public view every single day. For every person who announces their arrival into the fandom, there's a person who stopped posting without an announcement. Not often out of drama, but instead a quiet fade away from any significant online presence. Today, I figured I would talk about the various reasons why people leave the fandom, because understanding why they leave tells us just as much about the fandom as why they stay. So, a fursuit head some may proudly display in a dorm room at 19 or so years old, by the age of 29, sometimes that has to move to a loft somewhere, attic for Americans, not out of regret, but because new arrangements often means better management of your space. And convention budgets that once went to getting a nice hotel room or buying 15 items from the dealer's den now goes towards bills or if an emergency happens. The thought pattern completely changes if that fund turns into a way to survive. Of course, there's bound to be a nostalgic feeling when viewing old art, but the dates in the corners mark times that are long gone for some people, where weekends could be used for streaming or sketching rather than working or visiting family. Sometimes people just decide to tone it down a little and become less involved in the furry fandom. They may decide to repost some cute art they saw, but not be fully immersed at all times into whatever is happening in the fandom. However, a thing that does lead to people fully leaving is the drama of the fandom. I won't go too far into it in this video, but everybody that has been in the fandom for a while knows when drama is about to occur, and some always know at least one event that is currently going on. Not only is it emotionally draining, even if you aren't involved, it is also often a lot deeper than conflicts in the real world. Online, a persona represents who a person is, and their entire presence is essentially tied to it. So negative relations can really affect some people if they aren't prepared to face it, and it may affect what people post, as some people, specifically overthinkers, may constantly be in a mental battle with themselves, debating whether or not to post things, such as their art. Unfortunately, that mentally drains some people in the fandom even more, on top of being another reason to leave. Instead of confronting overthinking or criticism, some just choose to retreat and abandon or deactivate their account, sometimes without any warning. There's also an emotional, metaphorical weight put on some people's shoulders in the fandom. For example, some family members may be curious about the fandom, but not fully understand it due to how it's portrayed online. And if a person's persona, or even a person, ends up on a cringe compilation which they eventually find out about, it can be devastating to realize that a place you feel safe in lives in a world that mocks it daily. Younger people in the fandom especially feel this weight. People in the fandom are often berated with very strange and inappropriate questions in closed learning environments, which of course puts strain on the person getting asked said questions. Some get around this by being what people call a closeted furry. Often they show no signs of being a furry publicly, feel extremely secluded to prevent an outing, and can't even experience the fandom fully to compensate, which of course sometimes leads to abandoning the fandom. Anyway, a final reason why people leave the fandom is the simplest. As some people say, nothing lasts forever. The joy of being in the fandom or interacting with others sometimes just fades over time. Some people came to the fandom looking for something to change everyday life for the better, but what they failed to realize is that it is an addition to daily life, and these people who have bad experiences regularly outside of the fandom then just decided to leave. However, a few of those continue creating quietly. A few artists may continue to doodle their persona or a cool design for a different furry original character, but they don't feel any urge to share it with others as they may have previously. Yet, a few do eventually come back to the fandom when that urge returns, although not for the constant drama or even sometimes the community as a whole, but usually primarily for artistic or creative purposes. I personally see events like these happen all the time. Leaving the fandom because you're not interested in it anymore or because you don't have the time for it is fine, but where I take issue is where people don't feel as though they can be a part of the fandom due to public misconceptions or the internal drama. Of course, the aim of my videos is to talk about all of it and hopefully influence the public to do more research along the way instead of, for example, simply reading major news headlines and instantly wholeheartedly believing misconceptions. So, if you have any opinions or want to have a civil debate with others, I'd love to see it. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, or you can start a conversation directly with others on my Discord server at dsc.gg/skykes. And with that, I hope you all have a fantastic day.